Hello everyone, this is ICBs here and today we are talking about Superman yet again. I reviewed that movie already, but that video was really short. I think it was less than 5 minutes and I was definitely very positive with that review, and rightfully so, because I do think that this movie is really good. But I didn't really mention one really big issue, if you even want to call that an issue with the movie, that a lot of people are talking about. And yeah, I definitely felt it. It didn't, unfazed me. I wasn't unfazed by that. And that was, it's a spoilers thing. So I'm just saying, if you haven't watched this movie, you should, click off. But if you don't care about spoilers and you have watched this movie, the thing that I'm referring to is Superman's parents being absolutely evil. And yeah, it's a known thing that Superman's parents think very highly of this new planet that they're sending their son to, and they want their son to protect these people. But in James Gunn's version, it's a bit more, let's just say, cynical with that. I'm not sure if I can, mention a lot of the things that Superman's parents say, but what the hell, I'll just say them. So Superman's parents sends Clark to this planet, our planet Earth, to conquer us and become the leader of this whole planet and have as many concubines and wives to spread his seed everywhere, so he can revive Krypton. Admittedly, if we're being real, if you're sending off your son to an unknown alien planet and you know that your son is a literal god over there, you're gonna be like, yeah, our entire planet is dying. Why don't you go over there and start having as much fun as you can to spread your seed? You definitely would want to save your, entire planet Krypton, which is now extinct. You're our only hope, man. So yeah, that does seem a bit cynical, but also realistic. That said, just because it seems realistic, what does that mean that it was right to put it in the movie? Absolutely not. That is not Superman's parents. And imagine there might be so many people out there who, I'm going to say something very radical right now. There might be people out there who don't know about Superman, and your brain might explode by thinking about, oh, there are people out there who don't know Superman. Yeah, that could be the case, because most of the time, most people around the world are introduced to these characters when these big movies comes out. For instance, let's take me for an example. I never read Spider-Man's comic books. I watched Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and he had a very natural way of, shooting webs from his hands. And I thought that was just the default setting of Spider-Man, but apparently that's not the case. Apparently it's very well common knowledge among Marvel fans that no, Spider-Man needs some kind of a device on his wrist. And I just thought that it was really dumb that Spider-Man needs some device to use his powers. But yeah, watching that Tobey Maguire's movie, it made me, think about Spider-Man being able to just use his web just like that. Naturally, he doesn't need any device or something like that. But now I'm thinking that, yeah, there might be so many people out there who don't know much about Superman, and that happens. There might be people that know the word Superman and know the character by his costume, but they may not necessarily know about his parents and his history, what the reason he was sent to this planet. But James Gunn made this really big movie that a lot of people are going to watch, and they're going to rewatch it for generations. Like kids being born today might watch this movie 10 years from now, and they would think, oh yeah, Superman's parents, they're super evil. I'm not sure if this was the right thing to do from this point of view, but if we're thinking about, an inverse of that, a lot of people said the same thing about Man of Steel, that they were saying that this was not the right type of Superman. It's too broody, he's too emo, let's just say that. And I still like that movie, to be honest, even though there were a lot of people saying that it's a bad take on Superman, that Superman is supposed to represent positivity and optimism and hope, but Henry Cavill's Superman didn't really represented any of those things. And I'm gonna be honest over here and just say that I was never a big fan of Superman. He just seemed really bland until I watched Man of Steel. That speaks volume. Like, his character in that movie spoke to me, and I love that movie because of that. And now I'm going to transition to a different criticism that a lot of people have for this movie right now, that Superman seems weak. I don't think that is accurate at all. Like if you watch Man of Steel, like, people love, some people love Man of Steel. I love it too, to be honest. Like, I wish there was a Man of Steel too. I remember there used to be a time when I used to look on Facebook. Yes, Facebook, I was there, and there was these groups about Marvel and DC, and there were like timelines, and it was said at those times that Man of Steel Part 2 will come out in 2019. And man, you have no idea, as a teenager, that felt like an eternity away. Like, years into the future. I could not imagine 2019 being a year. And it's such a shame that Superman Man of Steel 2 never happened, because I was really looking forward to that movie since my early teens to my late teens, and 2019 came and went, and obviously that movie never happened. So I'm just emphasizing just how much I love that movie. But let's get back to the point about Superman being weak in James Gunn's version of this take on Superman. I don't think that he's weak. He's just taking on really powerful foes. Like, there's a goddamn kaiju. Like, I want you to close your eyes for a second and imagine Zack Snyder's version of Superman. Imagine Henry Cavill in place of David Cornsweet. Do you think that he would have such an easy time against that big kaiju? I mean, Superman, Henry Cavill was going toe-to-toe with General Zod and his lackeys. Like, it was like a 1-to-1 match. He barely won that thing, and only because he had practiced being on planet Earth for longer than them. Otherwise, I don't know, it could have gone either way. But imagine Henry Cavill. Like, would he have done any better than David Cornsweet Superman? And I know a lot of people are just going to say yeah, but in my personal and humble opinion, I don't think he's going to do much better. I think he's going to do about the same thing. And there were a lot of people saying that there's just this guy in a suit, that Hammer of Estonia. Let's just say that I don't remember the original country's name, so I'm going with Estonia because that's just the thing that comes to mind. But a lot of people were criticizing that, there's just a guy in that suit and he's able to beat Superman that badly. That should not have happened. And I agree, like, a man in a suit should not have been able to hurt Superman that much. But except that the man in the suit is also Superman's copy. Now that changes things, doesn't it? Superman's copy, even though it's an inferior version of Superman, he's not as smart. It's a bizarro version of Superman. You can expect him to throw a couple of punches that's absolutely going to knock out Superman. I think the problem that a lot of people might be seeing is not that this Superman is weak or anything like that. He's definitely facing a lot of the really big challenges that even Henry Cavill's Superman would struggle with. I think a lot of people are seeing Superman beaten down. I don't think maybe Zack Snyder's version of Superman had that. He definitely took punches, but he got up. But James Gunn tends to show Superman, the aftermath of taking a bad hit. Like, when you are punched, and by you, I mean Superman is punched, he goes down. Like, he needs a couple of seconds to recover. And a lot of people might say that, that's not a good thing. I don't like Superman be taking punches like that. But in all honesty, that kind of works. Because if you want a Superman that's like an all-powerful god, you have most probably the classic movies. And if I'm being honest, I haven't watched those movies, but from what I've heard, those movies are very comic book accurate. So if you want something like comic book accurate movies, Those movies are there for you. And if you want Superman to act like a god in a man's world, what about Superman Returns? In that movie, Superman is so powerful that there's literally no one that can do anything to him. Is that fun to watch? Because in the entirety of Superman Returns, Superman is just lifting heavy objects. There's a plane falling from the sky. He's lifting that. There's an island of crystals and Superman is lifting that. Like, he just lifts thing in that entire movie. He doesn't fight with anyone. Do you think that it would be a fun movie to watch Superman just decimate his enemies? It would be like playing a game on story mode, and yes, people like that, but would you really like someone else to watch them play a game on story mode? No. Would you watch a movie where the protagonist is so powerful that he just breezes through the enemies? This is one of the main criticisms that I have of Captain Marvel, Marvel's movie, that Captain Marvel is just too strong, that she needed to be weaker, or her enemies needed to be stronger to at least make the movie slightly entertaining. Like Captain Marvel, towards the climax of the movie, she just beats everyone willy-nilly, and it was disappointing. Do you really want to watch a Superman movie where he just decimates everyone? He doesn't take a single hit. The reason why I liked Man of Steel is because he felt like a grounded character. Yes, he is still powerful, like God-like powerful, but he is still struggling against his fellow Kryptonians, and that felt real. And damn, those fights, Zack Snyder can definitely direct a couple of fights that really remind you of Dragon Ball Z, and yeah, it definitely scratches that itch. But yeah, these were couple of things that were just bugging me because I didn't mention in my review, and if you watch that review, you would know that it was a very tight review. I had very limited time, and it was also edited very well. So if you haven't watched that, watch that review. And this video is just very casual. I'm just sitting down and ranting and just venting my thoughts right now. So yeah, if you've made it this far into the video by some sheer bad luck, I would, I would love to hear your thoughts, because I'm sure if you watched this video this far, you definitely have something to say. Just comment it down below and know that I am listening and I will respond. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, it's time for a goodbye.